Good morning, Year 3. This is Mrs. Stevenson. It's Monday, the 25th of January, 2021, and we're doing Reading for Meaning. So we're going to read the text together. There's some practice questions where you can think aloud, you don't need to write it down, and then there's a few questions for you to work through independently in your books, and an optional extension activity. So as you know, the book for this half term is Ned and the Detectives, and we're up to chapter 3. So, chapter 3. As the children ran towards Ned's house, they saw Mrs. Fox walking towards them, looking very puzzled. Ned and Noel told her all about their brilliant day being detectives at school. "Well, you might be able to help me too," said Mrs. Fox. "I'm looking for my 2 new bird feeders. I put them out in the back garden this morning full of nuts, and now they are missing, and the garden gate has been locked all day." "Oh, another mystery to solve, Detective Noel," said Ned. "We will be there soon, Mrs. Fox. We just need to solve the mystery of the missing hat and scarf first." "You sound like a real detective," smiled Noel, as the two of them started their first search. Being a real detective wasn't as easy as they'd thought. They looked all around Ned's garden for clues, but nothing. No hat or scarf, just a wet, smelly tent at the bottom of the garden. "Maybe Mrs. Fox's missing bird feeders will be easier to find," suggested Noel. "Let's go and see if we can help her." The children knocked on Mrs. Fox's door. "Detectives Ned and Noel, here to help," grinned Ned, as Mrs. Fox opened the door. Ned and Noel then went into the garden with Mrs. Fox, who showed them where the 2 bird feeders had been hanging. Together, all 3 searched for clues, but they couldn't find a single footprint or fingerprint, let alone a bird feeder or 2. "Well," said Mrs. Fox, "that certainly is a mystery. I'll keep looking and report back to you if I find anything. Thank you, detectives." She smiled at the children. "We really need to find some clues fast," said Ned. "Let's have something to eat and go back for another look later." Okay, so that's the bit of the chapter we're reading today, and here's some questions. So number 1, what was Mrs. Fox looking for? Number 2, what were the bird feeders full of? Pause the video here and have a think. Okay, let's look at some answers together. So number 1, Fox, not Mrs. Bird, Mrs. Fox is looking for her bird feeders. And number 2, the bird feeders were full of nuts. So some more questions. The next question was, this should be number 3, but it doesn't matter because we're just thinking out loud, aren't we? So do you remember what happened to the hat and scarf? And number 2, what does Noel think Ned sounds like? So pause the video here. For number 1, you're going to have to remember what we've read before. And for number 2, you can find the answer in the text. Okay, so let's have a look for the answers together. So earlier in the story, Ned's hat and scarf went missing from the washing line. And number 2, Noel thinks Ned sounds like a real detective. Okay, some other questions to have a think about. Number 1, did the children find any clues? And number 2, what does mystery mean? So you'll find the answer to number 1 in the text that we've just read, but the answer to number 2 you might have to just have a little bit of a think. So pause the video and have a good think. Okay, so the answers were: the children didn't find any clues. And number 2, mystery means something that's difficult or impossible to explain. Okay, so now we're going to do some questions independently in your orange books. So if you can get your orange books out, write down the date, Monday the 25th of January 2021, and write down the learning objective, which is to retrieve and define. So pause the video here while you write those down. Okay, So, question 1 for in your book. Who did the children see? Number 2, how did she look? And number 3, what had been locked all day? So write down the question numbers and then write your answers in a full sentence and pause the video while you do that. Okay, question 4. Which mystery did Ned and Noelle have to solve first? So pause the video while you answer this question. Number 5. What was wet and smelly in the garden? And number 6. What were Ned, Noelle and Mrs. Fox looking for? So again, pause the video while you write down your answers to this question. Make sure your answers are full sentences and super neat. Okay, brilliant. So you've answered 5 questions in your books. If you want to do the extension activity, it's optional. The activity today is to do some defining. So to define means to write the meaning of words. So we're going to have a look at some of the words from the chapter we've just read. And the words are mystery, clue, and puzzled. And if you can work out what you think those words mean and write that down, that would be great. And then you can pick 2 more words from the chapter and write down their definition too. So please check your answers before you submit your work. Have a check. Have you written it all neatly? Have you answered all the questions? And then once you've done that, ask an adult to take a photo and email it to Miss Morton. And once we've received your work, we'll have a look at it and send some dojos for excellent work. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I'll speak to you again.